Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be talking about how to set up auto adjusting heights. So that involves making sure that our parent containers snap automatically to the height of their child elements, ensuring that none of the content is cut off and there isn't any additional space at the bottom. Let's jump into this one. So I'm sitting here on the preview page of an application, and what you can see here is that there are a couple of issues with the way content is displayed on the page, and that's because a number of these elements have been set to fixed height. And the reason why they're set to fixed height is just to highlight the benefits or the disadvantages of using this particular approaches in certain circumstances. So on the left hand side here, you can see this feature set that is pointed out. And what we can see on this first feature of base template is that this text content over here is cut off. So it goes user ... And it's cut off because this text element is set to a fixed height. So it's too short. So it doesn't look too great. On the other side here, we can see that there is a massive amount of space between this text element and the next text element. And the reason why is because this text element is really long. It's got a fixed height that's too long. And then if I scroll down even further, you can see that this background of blue is a little bit too short, and this particular text is actually leaking over into the next section, which we also don't like. And the reason why is because this background group is set to a fixed height as well. So what I want to highlight to you here is that in particular cases, having a fixed height isn't the ideal option. What we actually want is we want to have individual elements and then their child elements as well be able to have a responsive height that changes based on the amount of information or the amount of text or the amount of child elements that are within it. So let's go into the editor and let me just break that down in a little bit more detail. So if I jump over to the editor and let's fix this first problem that we had. So as you can see here, it cuts off at user onboarding. And what I can see here is there is still more text that I want to add or display on the page. And the reason why this is occurring is because we have this element set to a fixed height of 50 pixels. What I actually want to do is I want to uncheck this box and I want to fit the height to content. So what this means is that as the length of text increases, the height will also increase. So if I copy this one and then I paste it here, the text element automatically increases inside. And the reason why this particular setting is really useful for text elements is because the amount of text that's displayed is often varies from the page that we're on. So to give you an example, just say if you have a profile page and every profile page has a different user which could be displayed. And there could be a text element which is the user's bio. And someone might add 100 characters to their bio. Another person might add 500 characters to their bio. And all we would do is we would provide a dynamic input which is linking to the user's bio. And because that length of characters is changing, we can't set a fixed height. What we need to set is we need to set the text to fit height to content because that length of text varies. So for text, it's really good idea to set to fit to height to content. Additionally, we also want to set the minimum height to 10 pixels rather than 50. The reason why is we just want a placeholder value here. We would add 0 pixels, but you can't add 0 pixels because if you do that, you can't actually select the element. The next one we have here is if I click on this one, I can uncheck this box and I can change that to a minimum height of 10 pixels rather than the 50, and that resolves my issue. Now, the other issue that we had was that this text was leaking onto the next group. So it had a different background, and some of the changes that we've just made have resolved that. But what fundamentally that issue came down to is actually related to this particular group. So we can see this group in a metrics, and it has 3 groups within it, which we can see on the table here, including this other tools group. And what is occurring right now is that this group, if you can see it highlighted on the screen, is sitting outside of the size of the group in a metrics group. So what we actually want to do is we want this particular group to have a responsive height, not a fixed height. And I'll set that to 10 pixels again. And the reason why we want this group to have a responsive height is because the size of the child elements within it, which also have text elements within them, could vary. So we need this group to also vary in size. And one benefit of having a group vary in size is if I do duplicate this one, you can see that this group automatically extends, and then relatedly, that background also automatically extends in height. We don't need to manually change anything in terms of element height. It just all automatically snaps into the height of the child elements within it. So another place that this is a really useful factor to have, so to have groups with responsive height, is if you're building a form and you want to add more inputs. So when you're adding more inputs, you want that group to automatically increase in height. So if we go back to our preview page and just see what it looks like now that we've made the changes, we can see that it's sitting a lot nicer, a lot cleaner. There's spacing from the bottom of this group element to where this background cuts off, and this text is no longer missing. So that text is fitting to the height of the content. So that's how we set up elements with auto adjusting heights based on the child elements or the amount of text inside of a text element.